What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody is doing very well. I am very excited today because I have an extraordinary guest who is going to lace us with some profound wisdom, information, and even some encouragement and inspiration to get us going in the area of personal branding, marketing, and learning how to tell your story. These are all incredibly important aspects of communication, but also to building your business online. The reality of it is that people gravitate to stories. People want to know your story. People listen. People are just sucked in when they hear a story. It's just the way that our minds are wired. And so I am very, very excited to bring on our guest today, who is John Mediana, and he has a wealth of knowledge and experience in this area. But before I bring him on, I just want to double check that everything is working the way that it should. So let me go over here to Facebook and YouTube and just double check everything is looking good. Let me see if we got anybody online yet. Nobody online yet. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Okay, yeah, it looks like everything is going good. Very good. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to bring on our guest, John. What is going on, my man? How are you doing today?
What is up, my bro? So excited to be here with you, man. I just, first of all, can't tell you enough. Like, you are crushing it, man. Like, I just love watching your journey. I love everything that you do, and I'm excited for what the future holds. And, bro, you're just such an inspiration with your content and everything that you put out there in the world. It's just so positive, so uplifting, and it encourages and inspires guys like myself.
Man, thank you so much. That is a huge compliment coming from you. It's like it's one of those situations, right, where you got somebody who's at that level where they're just killing it. And, you get into the room with them and you're kind of like, you start to feel a little insecure, like, dang, I know this guy knows what he's doing. I'm still trying to figure some things out. So, I got one of the coaches, man. I got one of the coaches in the room.
Oh, man, that's so funny because, like, it's funny that you say that because here's a little secret. Nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody. Okay. Like, no, not one person. I don't care if you're making $1 million or $100 million. You still don't know what you're doing because everything is just an experiment. It's like, all right, these are some best practices and this is what I know what to do. But to be honest, man, the atmosphere in digital is changing, and the way, like the platforms work, they're always changing. So we really don't know what we're doing. But there is one thing that we do know is that your story is the most underutilized tool today, and it's all about story. It's all about you and what makes you unique. And that's why we're here on your show today. So I'm really excited to dive in and really have this conversation with you, man. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome, man. And I'm excited to have you. And kind of just the backstory of what prompted this was I seen on John's Instagram stories, he said that your story is your secret weapon. And man, let me tell you, that just hit me because it's like, yes, that is exactly right. It's something that I've been kind of thinking over for a while, and he just kind of put words to it. And so I said, bro, I got to get you on the show. I got to get you sharing this information. But so he's going to do that. But before, let me just give you a little introduction, and then I'll pass it off to John. John is a personal branding specialist for impact-driven businesses and entrepreneurs. He helps them grow their brand and reach more people with visual storytelling, which is definitely fitting. He's the founder of Divine Hustle and executive brand growth at a creative agency that builds the personal brands of CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs. We got a hitter in the room today, man. We got a hitter. Though this guy is a part of some big things and has done some amazing work. But just to kind of back it up, John, tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks so much for that introduction, man. It made me feel like, oh my gosh, who is that? Like, that's rad. Like, dude, this guy's cool. No, but it all started when a long time ago in a galaxy far away, when I was born, actually, I was adopted as a kid, as a baby, actually. And I grew up kind of like with a phenomenal childhood. My parents were absolutely incredible. They've given me everything I needed to, really not just survive in life, but thrive, with coming up in a faith background. I grew up in church and all that stuff, but I had a lot of stuff I was wrestling with being adopted, that whole identity issue, and feeling the value and purpose in life, like really struggling with what's my purpose, why was I here, like why did my parents leave me, or why was I adopted. I just had tons of questions growing up, especially coming from a Filipino culture. So like, I'm first generation right here in America, but like seeing the hard work my parents have put in, and the dedication and sacrifices that they made just so I have a chance to live this dream, of like what it means to work hard, work diligent, but fight for a dream. So, with all of that in my upbringing, like my parents have taught me a lot, about just chasing after it, and finding your purpose. And that was my biggest struggle is, God, what is my purpose in life? And I was, at age 8, no one's really battling with your purpose, or you're not even thinking about that. You're thinking about like, how, what can I make with Legos today? Like, so like, I really had to face this, crisis in my life head on at an early age. And that's what sparked, my journey in creativity. I just felt like creativity was so opposite of like what my culture was doing, because a lot of my cousins and relatives at the time they wanted to be lawyers, they wanted to be doctors. As Filipino male nurses are a thing in our culture. So like, and my parents, God bless them, they were like, they found security in having a government job, and like following the whole education route, and like pretty traditional background coming from an Asian family, but everything in me was like raging against the beige, right? I wanted to fight against, like, I just felt like I was a black sheep already in my family being adopted, and all my cousins were like, oh, you're adopted and stuff. And yeah, they're terrible people, right? No, I love them to death. But it was just like, I already felt like an outsider. So might as well seal the deal and just go a whole different direction. So I fell in love with creativity, like making stuff with your hands, music culture, skateboarding culture changed my whole trajectory in life. When skateboarding culture came into the scene, with Dogtown and Z-Boys and Tony Hawk and all that stuff, that's what I grew up in, because I was like, man, I could just get on a skateboard and just experiment, explore, like learn, and I got into like, I played everything from baseball and did karate. I learned music. My parents gave me this opportunity to grow and explore the things that I wanted to, and what brought me happiness at the time. And that really kind of launched my career into learning filmmaking and photography. With skateboarding, I would go out with my friends and I would pick up an old RCA, those baby, like those old VHS cameras and stuff. I had one of those.
Yeah.
And growing up, and I was just filming my friends skateboarding, and I was like, oh, this is so rad. I could like do this. And I would learn how to edit kind of analog, where I would actually take 2 VCRs and record the TV and edit, cut on, just like by pushing record and stop. And I was really just like exploring this creativity, and this whole world opened up to me when I was a young kid. And that kind of like pushed me into the whole like learning everything. And I wanted to do everything. My dad even challenged me when I was like 12 years old, as I was learning creativity, and I wanted to be in music because, at church, I was like super intrigued with the music and like, like bands and stuff. And I was like, I want to be in a band. I want to learn how to play guitar. I want to learn how to play the drums. And I want to do all kinds of stuff. My dad was like, you know what, John, like, he'll say it in like a Tagalog, like a Filipino accent. Hoy, Jonathan, you have to, you can't be jack of all trades. You can't just, want to do everything. Like, that's what he would tell me. And I'll respond to him like, Dad, the problem is, man, I want to be a king of all trades. Like, I just love creativity so much. Like, my whole heart is involved, and I feel purpose in creating. Like, I feel like that's what I'm here for. So fast forward, I went to, film school. I did 6 years in art school. And at the same exact time, I was also working in the industry, learning everything that I could, and I just want to encourage a lot of people, when you're learning something new, make margin to fail a lot, because when I first started out, oh my gosh, if we were to see the first pieces of photographs or video pieces, like it would make you cringe. It'd make you cringe. In fact, I had 2 best friends tell me growing up that I should quit. I should quit photography. I should quit filmmaking because it's not the path for me. And like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did not listen to them. And I actually, decided in my heart I could go 2 directions. I could either quit now or continue to pursue purpose with creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to pursue purpose because it made me happy. It didn't matter whatever I produced was like, good or not. I think like what I had in my head was like, well, I'll get better at this tomorrow. It's really making me happy today. So like I pursued it. And back then we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have social media like Facebook and Instagram. In fact, we had something called MySpace. And I don't know if you guys remember MySpace, but actually MySpace was the conduit to launch my marketing career, funny enough. So like I was in a few bands growing up, and the only way to like really get ahead is to kind of build out like an electronic press kit or EPK.
Mm-hmm.
And MySpace was the direct connection to your electronic press kit. So like MySpace, I started diving into that. I started recording my own bands in my living room, in my bedroom, learning how to sound engineer, just kind of put things together. And again, I'm like such an obsessive kind of person. So like when I'm like focused on something, I'm obsessing over it. Like I'm just completely obsessed, completely hyper focused. I don't know if that's the same way with you. Like I need to know everything about this thing, And when my dad said, hey, don't be a jack of all trades, what he was meaning is like, there's not enough time to focus on everything. And I was like, I'm going to make time, even if I had to get no sleep for 3 nights. And I got to learn this subject. I want to be a master at everything that I touch and everything that I do, because that's how it felt like me fulfilling my purpose. So long story short, I started, learning about HTML and design and marketing and tying all the creative elements together. Like it was crazy. Like this whole world kind of like exploded, in 2005, 2006, where it was like just becoming an incredible thing, where I was like, all right, I need to go like actually get a degree in this. I need to go learn about lighting and audio and filmmaking. I love storytelling because that is like the whole basis. Like every single person on planet Earth has a thumbprint, and that shows that we are designed very unique. There is not one person on planet Earth that is designed just like the other. Even twins have a different thumbprint.
Yeah.
And that's incredible to me. So like using storytelling as a foundation, and then all these other things are just tools to make your story better, right? Like cameras, lighting, photos, like copywriting, words, messaging, all that stuff is just to enhance the story and to actually tell that story better so people could digest what you're trying to say and communicate what you're trying to say. So that was a part of my life where it was just like, I'm just going to experiment, explore, learn, so I spent years and years learning the art of photography, learning the art of filmmaking, messing up, failing over and over and over again. I owned even, when I was 21, oh my gosh, I owned my own media company. I had a 1,200 square foot warehouse with my name on the front. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go into business doing media. Whew, boy, was I young and just filled with ambition, but I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about anything. I just knew that I wanted to create and I needed a place to do it. And like, I ended up closing that business down a year later, because I'm like, oh man, I have to be at this place 24/7. It's not like my name's on the billboard in the front, but it really gets down to like your work ethic and like actually understanding how to run a business. And I didn't know that stuff. Eventually I started partnering with business owners and like, I was percentage holder in a few companies. during those times where I was failing, I learned a lot from those things. And I've succeeded in business and I failed in business. And I learned a lot from all of that. And here we are now, like I'm married, I got a son, I'm, in my 30s now, and we're building businesses right now that are seeing so much success because of the things that I've failed at. You know what I mean? So I've created margin to learn and grow. And I'm excited for the future because I feel like everybody who's anybody has a story, And I felt like growing up, I didn't have a story until I recognized like, oh, I do have a story. Oh, I can help people. Oh, I've learned and I made so many mistakes that there are people that are just starting where I was at that needs the information that I've learned through failure. Who can I help? By using stories. So yeah, that's a little backstory. I know it's a long and winded, but like I feel like that's where we are now, is understanding that your unique secret weapon is your story. So I hope that we could dive into how to tell your story, and what how you want to use what we have in today's world, these tools and techniques and stuff like that to help people tell their story better, ultimately to grow their brand, their business, and fulfillment and purpose in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many things that I can identify with. And even in the comments right now, we got some people saying purpose in creating. And then another comment says, this speaks to me right now. So that was some powerful stuff, man, that, I think that a lot of us can actually identify with that. And especially what I've noticed in the creative community, we kind of bear the same burdens. We feel like we're alone, but we kind of, and I even remember me growing up and having that same kind of, that same pressure to feel like, what is my purpose? And so I could relate to that. I remember this happened all the way up until like almost high school where, they would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And man, I never had an answer. And I always thought something was wrong with me because I didn't have an answer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I see now is like, what I knew I wanted to be just didn't have a name yet,
Yeah.
And so,
very yourself, like I was so funny. Like growing up, they're like, John, what do you want to be? A Power Ranger, or my mom was like, say doctor, say you want to be a nurse. I'm like, I don't want to be a nurse. I want to be a dinosaur. Like I was just like, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I just knew that I wanted to create, and I just wanted to use my imagination. And help people. That's it.
Yep. And there are so many people I know, and that's the whole purpose of this of bringing you on today was kind of twofold. Is one, to show people the power of how they can harness their story and use it, but also you alluded to this in your story, was also understanding the business side of it, that there's a way that you can tie this into actually creating a business and using it to make money and using it to advance whatever business that you're currently in. And so, I want to just remind people that, yes, telling your story is great, but there's also a strategic way that we can do that to grow business. And so that's why I'm really excited to have you on here. Let's kind of just start with the first question, right? Because I think everybody knows what a story is. Everybody knows that it's important. But when you ask them, what is a story? Everybody kind of has a different answer and they don't really know how to answer that. So what would you say? Let me ask you that. How do you define a story?
Yeah, I define a story in various ways, obviously, because, my film school background and stuff. Like a story is like, a means to communicate beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. Right. And and that's kind of like the dictionary kind of filmmaking example. But I would describe kind of like what story is a way to connect to people using things that you've learned in your life, or, things that have happened, or testimony, right, of you being a witness to things that you have done in your past, or you have learned in the past. And I think the biggest thing about story is understanding, first of all, you need some self-awareness. That's like the number one thing, is being aware that you have a story, because when I first kind of like became a Christian, and I gave my life to Jesus when I was 18, even though I grew up in a Christian home, I really said, hey, like, It's not my parents' faith anymore. I'm not walking in their shadows anymore. It's my faith now. I had to ask myself and become aware, like, okay, when I share my faith with people, what am I going to say? And I felt like I didn't have a story because I felt like, well, it kind of just happened, by faith. And like, I grew up in a Christian home, so that's my story. But really, my true story was, man, I was dead and now I come to life.
Mm,
And my true story was I was broken and now I'm fulfilled.
come
You know what
on.
I mean? So that number one thing that a lot of people have to understand when they're developing or defining what story is becoming self-aware. And that's one of the biggest things to understanding what a story is.
That's so good. Self-aware, man. Wow. That's, I think right there, especially for creatives, sometimes we could be so invested in our creative art or work that self-awareness is actually the hardest thing for us. So that's a gem right there. Okay. So back to what I saw in your Instagram story,
Yeah.
the phrase that your story is your secret weapon. Can you unpack that a little bit and tell us why your story is your secret weapon?
Yeah. So I really love this phrase, and I'm so glad that it kind of like really got your attention, because a lot of people are trying to find, what we call like a pill, right? Or like, what is that one thing that's going to solve all my problems? What is that one strategy I need to find? Or what is that one program or platform? What is that one? Everyone's looking for like a really like instantaneous what do you say?
Gratification.
Gratification. Sorry, I'm not from here. No, but they're looking for something so instant that they could kind of add to their formula and just it solves all their problems. But the reality is there's no such thing, right? There's really no such thing as like instantaneous. Like even the people, and I love, I'm sure your audience is familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk. But I love what he said, because about like 5 to 10 years ago, he was like, people will think I'll just come up out of nowhere overnight, but they don't realize it was 12 years of grinding, 12 years of failing, 12 years of, putting sacrifice and just, putting your hand to the plow. A lot of people don't recognize that it doesn't happen overnight. And if it does, it's like a 1% chance, less than that, probably a 0.00087% chance that it happens overnight. But understanding that the secret weapon that people are looking for isn't out there, right? And it's not like, oh, I just need like a word, like, oh, I just need like a something like magical, it's understanding that your secret weapon is your story, is your uniqueness, is your upbringing, everything that you've learned. And I love, there's a documentary online called Everything's a Remix. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
But the idea of everything is a remix is that your whole life consists of everything that you've come into contact with, your experiences, your influences, the TV shows you grew up watching, the music that you listen to, the influences in your life, everything that you are is boiled down and is filtered and remixed through who you are as a person. Right. So your life experiences, maybe, you grew up in church like me, or you grew up listening to, NWA or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you grew up with a certain upbringing that is so unique to you that not one person on this planet Earth has the same background or story. We have similar stories, like you had said earlier, like, man, I could really resonate with your story. I could really resonate. And that's another kind of strategy too, is likability or relatability, right? How can people relate to your story? Even though you have your unique story, there has to be a relatable kind of like component to it. That's how people, can gravitate to you as a person.
Yeah.
And, you could leverage that to build whatever brand you're trying to build, and understand that every single person carries a brand. Right? Every single person has a unique thumbprint. That also means that you have a personal brand. And people are like, well, I don't understand my personal brand. I'm trying to build a company, or I'm trying to build a creative business, and I'm building that brand. But it all starts with their personal brand. It's the reputation that people build and have in their community, in their family, in their industry. If you have a reputation of like, oh, that person just like uses people, or like, you know, they're a scammer, or they only take and they never give. Man, those are terrible traits to your personal brand, but yet you still have that reputation. So that's your brand. It's put on you. Like when people look at you and you know, what do people feel about who you are? What is your reputation like? That is that first touch, right? That first sense of like, oh, this is that person and this is what I heard about them, you know. And like with you, with me, even having me on the show, like my reputation is around creativity and, you know, personal branding and visual storytelling and all that stuff. But you wouldn't know that unless you had a relationship with me and being constantly like watching the stuff that I'm putting out there on the interweb. Right. Like it's either you know that online, or you know me personally, like your friend, or you know, someone that I know, or relative. So yeah, I know I veered off a little bit, but like your story is your secret weapon, and you got to own that. You got to own that and understand, like, man, like that is a secret weapon. That is the most underutilized secret weapon that every single person has.
And I think even on that point, you know, I really enjoy finding marketing and business advice and strategies in the Word of God. Like I feel like, man, the Bible, like as believers, we have the blueprint, man. God shows us how to build businesses. And so kind of what you said in Proverbs 22:1, it says this: a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. So, you know, when I think of that in the sense of like, man, so many of us are out here trying to hustle, trying to get money, trying to that we're not building a good name. And actually that good name will produce you way more than that temporary transaction that you're trying to make, that couple $1,000 or whatever. And so
it's a long game. And you know what? It's so funny that you bring up like, you know, this biblical kind of mentality, because I mean, I personally believe that Jesus was the greatest CMO of all time, chief marketing officer of all time. He knew how to bring to paint a vision and to connect with people using storytelling, right? Like he's talked in parables, like to fishermen, and he talked to shepherds and people that understood the language. Like he spoke, instead of choosing like all these big vocabulary words that people just don't understand, he understood that people needed to understand what he was saying by using storytelling. And I absolutely love that. And we could take those chapters and we could take what he said in the word, and it will inspire us to be better storytellers, better business people, better, you know, like it's all there. It's kind of unfair. And when, I don't know if a lot of people listen to what I talk about in Divine Hustle, but basically it's an unfair advantage, because it's like God, it's like praying like it's up to God and hustling like it's up to you, right? So it's 100% God, which is like, you know, he obviously inspires, he's done like it's all up to him, but it's also 100% your effort as well. So it's 200%. So we kind of have this unfair advantage in business and life and creativity, because we are being inspired consistently through the Spirit and by God. And then we put our hustle into practice. And man, that's just an unfair advantage.
Awesome, man. So going back to the comments, we have another hitter in the room. That is Mr. Alejandro Reyes.
What's good?
Another hitter in the space. This guy is a genius, and definitely can get connected with him as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. And by the way, he says amen. And, and WWJD though. What would what would John do is what he said.
Man, no.
But okay, so you know, in talking about story, especially personal story, right? There's always this one concern that I see come up over and over and over again, because personal story and sharing our stories can be so personal. There can be a lot of fear around that. Like, I don't know, what would be some advice or some tips on some strategies to sharing our story? In other words, what story should we put where, and how should we use it? How can we think of ways to share the story strategically?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And, you know, I might not have the perfect answer, but this is something that I've learned, you know, in business and life and creativity. And that's number one. Before you could even share a story, like before I could even produce a film or video or anything, I first need to know who am I talking to? So like again, going back to Jesus being the greatest CMO, Jesus understood who his audience was.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So like before you could even begin to start shaping a story, or what you're asking yourself, what do I need to share? How can I share? Like, it's so personal to me. You got to ask yourself, well, who am I talking to? Who is in the crowd? Who is in the audience? Because if you're trying to tell a story, there has to be almost like a point to the story that's going to help someone get over something, or create, a feeling of accomplishment at the end of the story. The whole point of storytelling is to help people understand, something about, whether it's you, about business, about creativity, but you're really using storytelling to help people understand. Right. So if your whole lens is coming from that place of like, I just want people to understand something, you got to ask yourself, first of all, who are you talking to? And second of all, what do you want them to understand? What do you want them to take away from your story? Right. So like when I'm searching for a story about, like a personal story, and I know it's so sensitive, and it's like it puts me in a vulnerable position. But if it's going to help somebody overcome like fear, or overcome something, or understand something, I'm willing to tell that story, because I know it's going to help others, and then in turn you become relatable, you become likable. When you don't show up, and this is the reason, and I'm going back to my nerdy side, this is the reason why people love Batman over Superman. Like, Superman is this hero from another planet, and he's just like, his OP levels, his overpowering levels is just unrelatable. But when you talk about Batman, there is so much affinity and love for Batman, because he's not only a normal person, but he's a person that we aspire to be, a billionaire playboy. No, I'm just kidding. But he has a human element to him, which he has to then think about, like some people love Batman because he's a detective. He uses his knowledge, he uses his, science and all this other stuff. But like, when you're telling your story, you got to first ask, who am I talking to? And what are they going to get from this story? What are they going to understand? What are they going to overcome? What am I going to help deliver to them that's valuable? And a lot of people tell their story all the time, and you don't recognize it, but they do. And we're constantly telling a story, constantly, every single. And it's like, it's funny because it's like, what do you mean we're telling a story? Like when I get up and I text a friend, hey, let's meet up for lunch. You're telling a story, like you're telling a story in that you're like, meet up for lunch. Okay. So that's in the middle of the day and we're going to link up. What are we going to talk about? And then you're having this story. So everything that we do in life, we are telling a story. You just got to recognize, what story are you telling? And, so online, when it comes to social media, how you kind of determine what stories you want to tell is asking yourself, who do you want to help? You know what I mean? What do you want to create? What brand reputation are you trying to create? Or what, persona are you trying to show that's going to attract the people that you want to help? So for me, a lot of people, you just go on my Instagram page or on wherever, and you'll find out really fast that I love creating. I love video. I love photography. I love my family. I like, those are the things and elements that help tell my story. Is like, okay, this is what I created. I direct music videos just like yourself. I've directed commercials. There's a lot of elements that has to do with creativity. So when people go onto your page or find out more about who you are, what are the things that you're talking about? Like, what are you constantly talking about? What are you constantly, living your life for? That's the story that you're telling.
So question for you here is, for somebody maybe that has, let's say, a business profile, Instagram, right? The priority is business, whatever it is, right? A lot of times they'll ask, like, how much of my personal life should I share, right? Like, should I put my kids on there? Should I put my vacation on there? Or, is that off brand? You know what I mean? What would you say to that?
So I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is an exciting time that we live where, traditional marketing and business is kind of obsolete. In fact, I would even make a bold statement and say that B2B is dead, B2C is dead. And let me tell you why. and what my thoughts are. And what has replaced that is something that we call H to H, which is human to human. Right. So like if you're a business and you're creating a brand, and obviously every business, we got a logo, we got brand colors, we got brand guidelines and stuff like that. Those feel so corporate and disconnected to human, like if the more you could humanize your brand, the better people will do business with you, because people don't buy from brands, they buy from people. And I think that's something that companies need to understand today, that we live in a human to human market, and we live a human to human life. Like, I don't like, yes, you have to have a brand, like, a company page and like information about your company and what you guys do, but to connect and market, like, those are separate things. And I see them as different lanes. Branding's one lane, marketing's another lane, sales is a different lane. Don't try to like put them all together and think that you're going to create a sale from your marketing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or try to land a deal or something like that.
Yeah.
Marketing is just simply put, telling your story, telling the company's story. Right.
I think a lot of it too comes from kind of the traditional way of marketing, where it was like you got one billboard to make a sale. And nowadays, you got 30 pieces of content you can post in a day. Like, it's all about engagement and interest, and you don't just got one shot. You got multiple, and matter of fact, you need to keep them engaged.
Yeah, I think I don't know if anyone's heard of this kind of line, but we use it a lot in advertising. We say marketers ruin everything. Again, it ties back to the idea of like, when people think, they say, oh, this is how it's done, and they got it all figured out. Run, just run fast as far as you can, because they don't got it figured out, because once they do, they pretty much ruin the experience.
Yeah.
Right? So when I talk to people and clients and businesses about, branding, marketing, and what does that mean to market human to human in today's world, that means you got to create content in perpetuity, meaning the only way to do that is showing who you are as a person, and who's, if you're a CEO or, you're running a brand, people first want to know about the brand, but they want to know about the person behind the brand. Are they ethical? Do they have the same values I have? Because, like, for example, Elon Musk, like, he'll tweet once and his stocks either tank or his stocks will like explode. Right? Like, what a crazy world we live in today's world, where one tweet could destroy or help your brand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's by the words that you use. It's about the message that you're putting out into the world, and be the gatekeeper. Everybody has a personal brand, period. Just type in your name on Google. And even though you don't have a personal website or stuff like that, Google has designed and collected all the information about you for years. And it's all on Google. So just type in your name. It's scary. I've done that a few times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I take this off the internet? Like, what accounts do I need to close on MySpace? So like, Google has already done the work for you. So you got to be the gatekeeper. Start taking control of your personal brand and start understanding, like, to do that, you got to ask yourself, what do I value? Like, what are the things that I value, and create ways to share what you value. Because it's going to make your brand more relatable. It's going to connect your personal branding to the brand that you're trying to build. And people are going to fall in love with who you are and the brand that you're building, because they see the person behind the actual brand.
All right. So let me ask you this question. And this is part of the benefits of having a show like this, is I get to solve my own problem.
Yeah, man. Solve that problem. Let's go.
Okay, so this is one of the biggest problems that I encounter, is how do you actually pull up those stories? Like, I'm sure we've all been there, right? You got a fire image, or you got a little banger clip of some, and you're sitting there on Instagram and you're like, like, a cool story would be really, really good here. That it's not just me like trying to brag about, something I'm doing, or, hey, look how cool I am. But like, how do you go back into the archives and really try to dig deep and pull up stories? Like, how do you do that?
That's a really great question. And, like, again, if I said I knew all the answers, I'd be joking. Right. But I've learned a lot of things in the past and like how to, you know, storytell and stuff. So like, let's say, for instance, because it really works when you share examples. So let's say like you've shot a music video and you're really excited about it and you're shooting, you're distributing or you're posting up these banger edited content, like the final product, and you want to tease it out and you're like, oh man, like, you know, aren't I awesome?
Yeah.
Like, you know, isn't my stuff dope?
Yeah.
People love, again, a good hero's journey. So they love, in fact, it's so funny. I would even argue that the product doesn't get as much views or engagement than the behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Like when I watch a film, like, you know, Justice League or something like, you know, Marvel, I enjoy the film, but I will spend countless hours on YouTube watching the behind the scenes. How did they do this? How did they create this? I want to know everything about how this was produced because I'm obsessed. So the people that are going to find that obsession of like, yo, I see the product, that's great and all, but can you tell me, how did you come up with this concept? Where were you filming? How did you get the permits? Who's your crew? What camera are you using? What platform are you using to edit? How did you color grade this? There's like 50,000 pieces of content.
Yeah, you're right.
Just from that banger product that you just posted. And we're failing to do that. I fail to do that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so I'm just saying, like, you got to search for the story.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
You got to search for where the stories are at that the audience wants to hear. Like, what is going to help people understand? Like, can you open the hood? And you know, and I love, you know, seasoned creators understand this, but the creators that are just new, they always want to show their best work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they want to show their best work, their best portfolio. They want to show that they're working with Nike. They want to show, even if they're not working with Nike, they got some friend that has some Jordans that they go film them. And like, you know what I mean? And be like, this could be Nike. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they want to show their best, but what doesn't click or doesn't connect, they're just, again, Superman. But the Batman is showing the vulnerability. You know what I mean? Like, are you living a Batman lifestyle with creativity and business? Like right now, we're growing our business, and you know, I'm documenting everything. Like, I got cameras everywhere. Like, I'm just like documenting the whole process. I'm documenting every single Zoom call. I'm just like fully on document mode because I want to show people that they too can do it. They like, I want to show people the realness, the mistakes that I'm making, the success that we're having, but also like the failures too, because that creates relatability. That's a story that you tell, you know, and like, if you could already think of people in your life, like my dad is a phenomenal storyteller. I'm sure that folks in the audience have people that they're like, oh yeah, my grandpa, man, he could just tell stories all day, you know. A good friend of mine, his name is Jim the Rookie Morris, man. Like he, you know, the Rookie on Disney made a movie about him, the Rookie. And you just spend time on the phone with him or just in person. He is a storyteller. Like that dude can tell you so many stories about how he was, you know, the oldest rookie in the MLB in baseball. And he has all these, you know, stories about Hank Aaron and all these old like people that I'm just like fascinated by the way he tells stories because it just sucks you in, right? It takes you into the story. So if you have content that you're developing as a creator and you want to, you know, you got that early creator syndrome, which I call it, you know, like where you're just like, I just want to show all the trophies. You know, and I want people to engage and comment. I want to see 50,000 comments. I want like that already. You're setting yourself up for failure.
No doubt. So let's kind of unpack that a little bit, right? Because here's what we know about story. There is no story if there's no conflict, right? Nobody goes, you know, we're both fans of Donald Miller building a story brand, and he's got some tremendous principles in there. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. But, you know, he tells this story of like, nobody's going to go try to, you know, save the world or save a city from a bomb that isn't going to explode, right? If we all knew that it's not a bomb, then there's no conflict. There's no story.
Yeah.
Right. So
there's healthy tension that needs to happen in a story, you know?
Right, which leads to this interesting place from telling your story, right? So we know that conflict is important, but then we have insecurities, that you mentioned, lifting up the hood and showing kind of the inner workings, right?
Yeah.
And I even fall victim to this as well, where it's like, there are certain people that maybe I can teach, but there are certain people that obviously are always going to still be learning from.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of like, man, what if I lift up the hood and everybody just goes, man, that's wrong. That's connected. That's like, it's like this voice that just
Yeah.
kind of goes like, you don't know what you know. You don't really have any results. You're not qualified to teach. And you're basically just an imposter, right? That
Yep.
imposter
Oh
syndrome. So
man.
what would you kind of say to those?
Yeah, I could tell you so many stories of even today, like imposter syndrome is a viable, complexity that we face as creatives. I feel like as a creative, we're more prone to imposter syndrome because it's like, man, only if they knew that I was part of YouTube, Academy or something like that, like my, or only if they knew that, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Right.
I think like that is like one of the biggest hurdles and challenges that we face. Imposter syndrome. Understand, imposter syndrome is the villain in our story. You know what I mean?
That's good.
Like the imposter. Every time that you share something under the hood, where you share your process, you win. Because our friend says haters are our elevators. And like the more people hate on you, the more like I feel like haters are our biggest fans because they're always going to follow you and see what you're doing wrong. And for sure they're going to be the first one to comment, be the first one to I feel like they help the algorithm for my Instagram when they start because it's engaging, even though it's negative stuff. I feel like, man, it's boosting the story so other people could see it on my feed because of the algorithm. But, haters are your elevators, they're just stepping stones. It's like everyone could be a critique. It's hard to be someone that actually encourages and inspires and like finds that. And everyone's a critic. You know what I mean? I've had so many critics my whole entire life, regardless if I knew them, and they're like my family, or they're people that I have no idea. They're in their basement typing up a storm because they got keyboard courage. Like they're the people that show you that you're onto something great. Yeah. Because it's an indicator. I feel like haters are indicators. If no one's hating on your process, like you're not really doing anything worth talking about.
That's good.
You know what I mean? You're not really doing anything. And, if you're sharing your process and you're like, hey, like if I just started today and I was like, oh man, I'm learning how to create video and film and editing and stuff. I'll want to show how I'm getting to a place because again, everyone lives a hero's journey. So like, if I'm showing where I started and then next year, like I just skyrocket and like, I just keep on showing the process and like you're going to get haters be like, oh, this person's, they don't even like, they use plugins or like, they bought LUTs or whatever. It does not matter because you get to share your process and people really don't care about the product that you create. They care about the process that you take them on, and that's the point is that like, you got to just squash that mentality of like, look at haters and negative comment as like a badge to wear. Like, oh man, like, I can't believe I got that person's attention. Like, I'm going to keep on sharing because I want them to comment more. You know what I mean? Like, just keep doing it because I could guarantee you that if they have time to comment on your stuff and, you're sharing your process, they're not building anything worth value themselves because people that are building value don't have time to hate on other people.
Right.
Like people that are actually doing something with their life and creating a lifestyle that is a change agent, they don't stop and like hate on other people's progress or process or anything. They just don't have time. So these people, they just like want to feel validated for themselves. Like, oh, I really showed them. Oh man, when I said that their work sucks, made me feel good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just want to encourage, you and your audience.
No
to
doubt.
Just think of it as like a badge.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think you made some key points there, with them elevating you. One, you get the engagement, but you know what too, you also get kind of a target for your community. Because you'll notice your community will start going after them and going like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, dude, he's
pile on.
So you actually kind of give you throw a little something out there for your community to kind of grab a hold on and you know, a purpose and
You'll
whatnot.
be surprised at how many people will go to your defense.
Yeah.
I've had tons of, and I absolutely love my community and you know, my friends and stuff, because like if they see someone, especially when I started doing YouTube and stuff, like I got like negative comments and like just people I didn't even know started piling on and be like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, this is awesome. Like, they just start defending you when you're creating authentic content.
Yeah. No,
You know what I mean? Authenticity is value and is so like people will go up to bat. And like, you know, I've learned, you know, just that bully mentality is such a short game in the long run. You know what I mean? Because there are online people do like struggle with mental health because they're getting bullied online.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to help people understand how much value they have.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know what I mean?
No doubt. So on that note, right, let me kind of, you know, because obviously there's always kind of a code or a way of, you know, ethics or whatever, right? Like when sharing your story, there's obviously probably some do's and don'ts, right? So we talked a lot about doing and how to overcome and how to push through and kind of the benefits of it. And we all realize kind of the importance of it, I think, for the most part. But are there some things that stand out to you? Like, hey, listen, when you're telling your story, avoid this or don't do these common mistakes. Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah. My first thought is don't be long-winded when telling a story, because people's time is valuable, but they want, again, with the world that we live in today, you got 7 seconds or less for someone to either click off your content or like, you know, so when it comes to bite-sized content, when it comes to storytelling, find ways to tell the story, like get to the point and not be long-winded. When you're doing podcasts, that's all the reason to be long-winded, you know, like, you know, people want to engage, but like when you got that first tier of attracting people, talk to them, like, you know, get to the point really quick and don't be long-winded. But like once they build that relationship with you, then y'all could have conversations that last a longer time. You know what I mean? It's just like any relationship, you know? So like at first you don't want to like go into this whole story and you're like, oh my gosh, like, why is this person talking to me about this, you know, this whole thing? Like, you just want like the facts, and you want, you know, to get to know that person fast. And then you could now figure out, okay, what investment do I have with this person in the long run? You know what I mean? So like when you're telling that story, yeah, just don't be long-winded.
Very
you know?
good.
And I think another thing is also like I use words like I use a technique that I call like a kind of like. It's called kind of like technique, where if you're trying to explain something and you're like super geeky like me, and I'm trying to explain something that's like super meta and super like geeky, I love, and you're sensing that the audience is getting disconnected, you know, it's like one of those feeler things. You got to use techniques like kind of like, you know, so like, you know, Batman is kind of like, you know, this, or like, you know, if you're doing business or you're telling a story, don't be a superhero like Superman. You want to kind of like be Batman, you know? So kind of like is a very useful technique when you're telling a story, because it helps people understand what you're talking about and put some like language around that. Like if a artist came up to me and was like, yeah, I'm making this, you know, new music, it's nothing like anyone's ever heard before, I will straight up be like, cool, next. Like I will run, because I don't, if it's never been done before, it's probably not a good idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even when you're selling something, or the psychology is selling, or persuasion, you're going to learn this a lot. Using kind of like is going to help people buy into something, that the story that you're trying to tell better.
Yeah. It reminds me of like, you know, you use in the camera world, you know, what's a variable ND filter? It's kind of like sunglasses for your camera, right? It's basically what it is.
Yeah. So use kind of like more often.
No, that's great. And I think the whole takeaway from that is you don't want to introduce areas that will cause a divide in whoever's listening to your story. You know, if this requires technical knowledge for you to know, the chances are not everybody's going to have that, which is just another area where they can get disconnected from your story.
I think lastly, my other tip is when it comes to even copywriting or messaging, a lot of people start like listing out, you know, features. Oh, it's going to make you do this, that, X, Y, and Z. Like they'll list 20 reasons why they should purchase their product or like, you know, subscribe to their channel. But what we've learned with, you know, message and communication is just give me one big idea. What is one big idea for every story you're trying to tell me?
That's good.
You know what I mean? So if you make one piece of content, what is the one big idea? And I've done this because I failed a lot in the past where I'm listing all these things that I absolutely, you know, think is amazing. And I'm like, oh, the 50 steps into, you know, producing better quality videos. And like, no one wants 50 steps. Give me one big idea. What's one thing I could take away today that's going to make me a better filmmaker? You know what I mean?
No, so that's so good. Yeah. That's really good. And we can, once again, you know, going back to the whole idea of a story, you know, usually you have a character, a protagonist who usually has a desire. He doesn't have multiple desires. He usually has, you know, one desire in mind, and that's what the movie is about. And
that's what we love.
You know,
that's what we love about Gary Vaynerchuk. He wants to own the Jets. That's his one big idea.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna watch this guy. Like, get there. You know,
no doubt. Okay, good. So, you know, on the idea, just kind of coming to a close here on the idea of your story is your secret weapon. Is there anything that we didn't touch on or any other final thoughts just around this or last words of encouragement to content creators, you know, specifically Christian content creators that you would like to leave with us?
You know what? I just want to say that you're already telling your story, whether you know it or not. Start becoming aware of telling your story all the time. Get familiar with your story and repeat it every single time. When I talk about being adopted and like, you know, my story, my background, it's taken me years to develop a kind of like a condensed version, right? Like almost like an elevator pitch. But the more you tell your story, the better you get at telling it. Right. So if you could continue to tell your story often and always, you're going to get better at becoming a storyteller. Just like if you want to go into video making or being creative, a lot of people will be like, you know, sometimes I get writer's block or creative blocks and stuff like that. If you're a creator, if you wake up like just constantly thinking about creating videos and creating photography, like experimenting with different type of techniques and stuff, man, like the writer's block doesn't normally happen when you're just like, you know what? Writers need to write. Video makers need to create videos. I consider myself a video creator and like a creative. So I'm just going to continue to plow through those walls and just create more content, tell more stories, tell better stories, like educate myself, pull inspiration. And let me tell you, one of the best ways to find inspiration is to get out of your own industry. You know what I mean? Start looking at different industries and different markets for inspiration, because those things will inspire you. Like they're doing things in other markets that you can never fathom that you'd be doing in filmmaking or in, you know, in your business. Look at other types of markets and how they're telling their stories and what they're doing. And like, that's going to inspire you to create more and tell your story in a more unique way.
Very good. Very good, man. That is, man, there are so many pieces of knowledge and information and wisdom and gems and whatever else you want to call it that you laced us with today, man. And brother, I am so appreciative, so grateful that you agreed to come on and share all of this with you, bro. I feel like I gotta hit you on your Cash App. It's a massive amounts of value, which I'm
John Mediana. Also, I wanted to leave your audience with a gift too of how to define their story. So I sent, you know, over a PDF that they could probably connect with and you know, really fill out. It's like a fill it out, you know, just like prompts and questions that will help you define your story and like tell that story better.
So, and I will make sure to link that in the description on the YouTube channel, and then also to post that in the private Kingdom Creative Facebook group for you guys to download that. I'm sure that is going to be a valuable asset to storytelling. But man, I really appreciate it, bro. And we're closing up, but I wanted to, this is on the fly. I didn't give you any notice about this, but we're going to go into a lightning round real quick. Okay.
Oh,
So off the top, quick answers.
oh man, I suck at this.
Several different topics. Okay. It's not
All
so
right.
many questions, but let's go. Favorite movie.
Oh gosh, Hook.
Okay. Favorite color.
Teal.
2 most influential people in your life.
Jesus and my bro Alejandro Reyes.
Yeah, come on. All right. Favorite holiday.
Oh, birthday.
Nice. A book you're currently reading.
Oh, Marketing Warfare.
Nice. Favorite social media tool.
Ooh, the Instagram story. I don't know. That's a tool. I don't know. It's like so easy.
Okay. Favorite design tool.
Oh, Photoshop.
Best social media growth hack.
Ooh, just push record.
Quick tip for creatives.
Ooh, tell your story always.
Favorite book in the Bible.
Ooh, oh my gosh, that every book is. I love. Oh my goodness, I love it all. But Galatians and I love Romans. I love all the New Testament. I love the Old Testament too, like Psalms, Proverbs. All you know what? The whole book, all 66.
Okay, favorite camera.
Ah, man, that's tough. I'm a Canon user, but I want to get my hands on the red Komodo.
Yes. Okay. Come on. Favorite lens.
Whew, man, any Zeiss lens. I love the. You know what? Sony's G Master 24 millimeter
1.4.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes, that's a beautiful lens. One future goal for business.
One future goal is to create an academy.
Nice. One future goal for your personal life.
To have more kids.
Ooh, okay. That concludes.
I love practice. You know.
Concludes our lightning round. And so for everybody to just stay connected with you and everything that you got going on, let us know where they can find you, where they can find more of you, how they can tap into all the amazing stuff that you got going on.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, man, for letting me share and stuff like that. I'm so excited. John Mediana on everything like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, all that stuff is John, John. Me, Diana, or media. Nah, media is in my name. So I feel like I was born to do stuff like this, you know?
I know. Okay, very good. And you also have a podcast, Divine Hustle Podcast, which is dope. And so I would encourage everybody to check that out. iTunes, that's on all the major platforms as well, right?
Spotify, iTunes, Google, anything that you consume podcasts on, it's on there.
Definitely. And you know what? I can just say from personal experience, John is just an amazing brother who is always looking to help. And so I don't know if he wants this, but I'll kind of volunteer him that, slide into his DMs, let him know that you've seen this episode, let him know what's something that stood out. As people that are providing solutions in the marketplace, we always love to hear feedback when something was like, hey, that thing clicked for me, or that piece of advice was really helpful. We love feedback. So if something in this episode stood out to you, definitely slide in his DMs and let him know specifically what that was and specifically how it helped you out. And I know that'll be a blessing to him in his business. So this wraps up our podcast, our show. I once again want to just thank you so much, John, for jumping on, making the time. Huge honor, much love, much respect, and much blessing to everything that you got going on, brother.
Thanks, brother. Glad to be here.